What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNV Drives Edition. Today the internet has been set on fire, and I'm pausing from another video to address what the world is going crazy about right now. And I mean, are they really going crazy? But there's definitely a lot of chatter. But let's get into the 2024 Corvette E-Ray. Now I'm gonna give you my thoughts on why I think this vehicle is special and definitely what makes it different. Let's go.
Move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas. No, never stop competing, yeah. I've been doing this, I'm on it. I just wanna be iconic. Sipping on a gin and tonic. Got me going off when I'm on this topic, yeah. If I ever play, I want it. You know that I'm always honest. Stay away from those who are toxic. Keep them out your face, no way, you don't want it, yeah.
GM has finally released an electric, but not a true electric. It's a hybrid version of the Corvette C8. And not only is it a hybrid version, and it's a spectacular release, it's also all-wheel drive. And I think that's the biggest hype of the whole situation, is it's the first all-wheel drive Corvette C8. And technically, it's the first front-wheel drive Corvette C8, and we can talk about how that works out as well. But just like I expected, and I've had conversations with you people before, is it's an electric motor in the front and the stock C8 engine in the rear. So you have the 490 horsepower or 495, depending on if you get the MPP exhaust in the rear. And you also have an extra 160 horsepower assisted from an electric motor. Now I will be honest with you, I was completely wrong. So you ask, how was I wrong? And I was wrong because GM isn't the first manufacturer to actually decide to use electric motors to boost the performance of their vehicle. But they are the first to make the electric motor independently work from the engine. So what do I mean? Well, my thought process was they would adapt something similar to the Acura or / Honda NSX hybrid model. And the Honda NSX model has 3 electric motors, one that is attached to the engine. Then they have 2 on the front wheels, which is also another all-wheel drive supercar or performance car, depending on how you want to sit there and say it, but it's definitely a supercar. And it delivers an extra boost to the vehicle to provide a performance increase. So I was under the assumption that GM would adopt somewhat along the same theory, and I don't believe I was the only one that truly believed that we would see 2 independent motors on the front wheels and then one somewhere in the rear attached to the rear engine. And so even if you look at several people's speculation videos when they look up under the car and they're changing out the exhaust and so forth, we have been trying to figure out where they're going to put this extra engine in the back near the motor. So for them to come out and actually make a 1 independent motor in the front wheels pushing out 160 horsepower and helping the stock C8 engine go from 495 horsepower to 655 horsepower, I think that took us all by surprise. And I also was wrong because my expectation was for this car to boost somewhere around 615, maybe 625 combined horsepower. Never did I think it would be so close to the Z06. So now we're looking at the fastest C8 Corvette ever. It's GM's fastest Corvette, going 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, and we're getting a quarter mile in 10.5, which is technically a 1/10 of a second faster than what GM has released on the C8 Z06. But we've seen so far the C8 Z06 has been able to match those numbers. So it's pretty much putting out the same performance in the short stint as the C8 Z06. So what does that do for pricing? And I think that's one of the key things too, because you now built a car that is almost comparable to the dominant track vehicle that you mentioned. And honestly, this is where GM's classification comes in. But before I dive into that information, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, join the ICNV Driver Edition community. We talk about interesting conversations that my community brings up, or not only that, we share videos, create some interesting posts, and I have a lot of fun on this channel as well. So if you're looking for a way to pass the time with something interesting, become a subscriber, hit that bell notification, and check out the videos as they come up. Now, let's get back into this video. I want you to pay attention to how they marketed the Z8 Z06, and I want you to pay attention to how they market the C8 E-Ray. And there is a big difference, and the big difference is the C8 Z06 is supposed to be the most dominant track weapon you can get. And I say that again, the most dominant track weapon you can get. So when we see the C8 Z06 out in all these drag strip straight line races, and it's doing pretty good, especially against a lot of these supercars on the market and some non-supercars, you keep hearing the engineers say, but that's not what the C8 Z06 was designed for. You've heard me say that's not what the C8 Z06 was designed for. So although it's doing pretty well against these vehicles, you're talking about a vehicle that was not truly meant or designed to be a straight line beast. It was meant to be something else. Well, now they introduced the C8 E-Ray, and it has the same body style as the C8 Z06, except they say the C8 E-Ray is supposed to be the fastest straight line Corvette ever. So now, when you see all these races, they really should be putting the C8 E-Ray up against these cars instead of the C8 Z06. Why? Because it is the fastest straight line Corvette ever made to date. And keep that in mind, to date. So now we know why they constantly market the C8 Z06 the way they have and how they're pushing the C8 E-Ray. Do I think the C8 E-Ray is going to be a real spectacular car? We can get into some of the performance aspects of it. Let's do it now. Well, like I've mentioned before, the Acura NSX to me was a remarkable build. I just think it was ahead of its time. And the problem with being the first is a lot of times the world isn't ready. But since we've had the Acura NSX out, since we've had the BMW IA out, and we've seen electric motor vehicles pop up on the market more and more and more, I think the world is finally ready to accept or appreciate a more hybrid-focused performance car. And now we have the Corvette E-Ray. And in the past, hybrid cars haven't really done that well, so I'm almost interested or intrigued to see how many people truly want the Corvette E-Ray. And like I've mentioned before, I was one of those people that was more interested in the Corvette E-Ray than I was the C8 Z06. And so far, we really haven't gotten a lot of information on this vehicle, and now I'm teeter-tottering. But we could get into that into another video of why I think the C8 E-Ray and the C8 Z06, which would truly be the better buy. I'll definitely make that coming up. But I'm teeter-tottering mainly because their price point is not that far apart. And I think that's a unique feature. Also, from what I'm hearing, and like I said, we haven't really got a lot of information out, but you can't get the C8 Z07 package on the C8 E-Ray. But what you can get is a special version of the E-Ray for more performance. And what I think is really funny about this, or let's say remarkable about this, is from all the cars I've seen on display since they announced that the E-Ray reveal, is that you see a C8 E-Ray with the carbon fiber wheels but no aero. I think that's kind of unique and interesting at the same point, because you can't get the carbon fiber wheels on the C8 Z06 without getting the aero. So the spec they wouldn't let you build on the C8 Z06 is a spec you can build on the C8 E-Ray. So maybe this is one of those tricky moments, whereas, like they say, how can you identify the two cars from each other because they have a similar body style? Is that you can actually get the carbon fiber wheels on the E-Ray without having the aero, whereas you can't get the carbon fiber wheels on the Z06 without getting the aero. Also, other ways you can tell the car apart is they have same color body accents on the C8 E-Ray. It actually comes standard. Now, I've heard other YouTubers mention in their predictions, which I told them was wrong, but that's not the point. You can get carbon flash on the C8 E-Ray. And the car that they had on display for all of our favorite YouTubers to utilize and go over the vehicle, which we got a lot of the same information, definitely had carbon flash exposed accents. So that myth or that rumor has been put to bed. Now, the way they utilize the center for the battery storage, I think was actually brilliant. And for quite some time, we wondered what was going to go on there, considering there was no drive shaft running through the car because it was a mid-engine vehicle. Well, utilizing that space for the battery and then to put the motor behind the front, which I told so many people when people kept saying that the E-Ray is going to lose its front space because they got to put the motor up there, which again was in the same idea, and I don't think anybody was wrong for that, was under the same impression that GM was going to take the approach that the Acura NSX took and the BMW i8 took and the Ferrari took. So when people were making that assumption, I think it was a fair assumption to make, but I was kept screaming from the top of my lungs that one thing about GM and one thing about the Corvette is it's always been a people-focused, driver-focused vehicle. They wanted to make a high-performance car that had storage. That's always been GM's point. From day one, they said they did not want to relinquish any of the storage capacity of either car. So every time people assume that the next version of the car was going to take away from the storage of the car, you've been wrong. That's one aspect I have yet to see GM do, other than making a convertible version, is take away any storage offered for any Corvette they've ever made. So why would they start today? That's one thing you have to remember. GM has been truly focused on the ability of the Corvette to be a daily driver. And now with this new E-Ray, with the all-wheel drive setup, yes, it's a car that you can drive in all weather seasons. I'm not sure how many people are going to change the way they baby their Corvette, and if they're really going to look to drive their car in the wintertime, in the snow, rain, or whatever. But I know there are a handful of younger Corvette owners out there that do that already with the base C8, and having an all-wheel drive setup if they decide to step up to the new $104 price tag is going to be interesting. Now, like I was saying before, with the new price starting out at $104,000 for a coupe and $111,000 for a convertible, it's floating around the same money as a C8 Z06. So my question now becomes to you, which I think it's really a conversation to be had at a later date. Do you trust the electric motor for long-time reliability versus the new flat plane 5.5 V8 for long-term reliability? And in most of our opinions, I know we already have faith, or more faith, in the 6.2 liter V8 that's in the base Corvette C8 now. That electric motor is one of those, but we'll see about that to come. Now, before I let you go, I want to sit there and say, yes, it is not a plug-in hybrid, which that was one thing we were concerned about, or was one of those questions that we were having. It is a self-regenerating, a self-charging, for those that don't know what that means, battery setup hybrid. So it will be primarily focused around the gas engine, which will then use braking and other techniques to recharge the battery. And one thing I was hearing, you can drive the car and stealth mode, which is complete battery focused, and up to 45 miles per hour with no use of the engine. And it's for short distances. I'm still looking for maximum travel you can go on the battery alone. So if I find that information, I'm going to post it right here. And I also did hear that if you completely drain the battery, you won't have to go out and constantly drive the car to fully charge the battery, because what they were saying was that under normal driving conditions, it would take about 30 minutes to fully completely charge the battery back up to full boost mode. But you should be able to keep it charged enough for it to engage and maintain the combined 655 horsepower with just normal driving. And you shouldn't really expect for it to ever be completely drained once it's full. So my last thing is, I'm going to do a little bit more research, and like I said, they really didn't give out a lot of information, so I would do my best to get a little bit more information on it, like what's the life expectancy of the battery and the maintenance that is now required on the electric part or the electric motor aspect of this car, the things we're adding to it. But one thing I can sit there and say to you is that what we have learned now is that we now have a Corvette hybrid that is going to take the world by storm. I'm interested to see how many people are truly interested in it, because other hybrids haven't fared so well in the supercar platform unless you stepped up to a major brand like Ferrari, and even still, they haven't really sold a lot of their hybrid platform cars as of yet. But it is the way of the future, so I feel like as they remove more 100% gas engine vehicles off the market, the vehicles will start to sell. And I think that might have been the problem with the Acura NSX, is because you still had the option to go out and buy or purchase complete gas engine vehicles, and the world just wasn't ready for the shift. But when there are no other options, the Acura NSX now seems more appealing, especially when it has performance and power that can match the Audi R8. But this is not the video for that. So, like I said before, the E-Ray has been revealed. The information is now out. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and we will have more interesting conversations about this vehicle to come. So, ICNV Driver's Edition, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, join the ICNV Driver's Edition community. I talk about topics that my community is interested in. So if you have something you want me to discuss, hit me up on one of my social media platforms, and I will have a conversation about it. But as always, stay blessed, stay safe, and I will see you in these streets. Peace.